Good morning, everyone. This is Eric Hope Gokong, and today let us talk about Azure Model. What is Azure Model? The Azure Model is an instructional system or guideline that teachers can use to develop lesson plans which integrate the use of technology and media. In other words, the Azure Model is a procedural guide for planning and delivering instruction that integrates media into the teaching process. A systematic approach to write lesson plans. A plan used to help teachers organize instructional procedures. A plan used to help teachers do an authentic assessment of student learning. And a model that can be used by all presenters. The Assure model places the focus on the learner and the overall outcome of accomplishing learning objectives. The peculiar feature of this model is it is focused on planning and conducting instruction that incorporates media according to Henich, Molenda, and Russell in 1993. Its main perspective is on how to integrate media and any kind of media into instruction in a method capable of producing the desired learning outcomes. It is well known as instructional design guide that uses the constructivist perspectives which integrates multimedia and technology to enhance the learning environment. The Azure model was modified to be used by teachers in the classroom by Smaldino, Lowther, and Russell in 2008. Teachers prefer the Azure model because it is designed to be used for a few hours of instruction and for each individual student. The model does not require high complexity of delivered media, deep ID knowledge, or high revision designs. The main difference between an inexperienced teacher and an expert teacher is that an expert teacher is easily decide on content, appropriate teaching strategies, and delivery medium. The Azure model gives new teachers a general roadmap to follow and help them think more like expert teachers. The Azure model has 6 steps, each represented by a letter in the acronym title, with each step describing a set of tasks central to the inform the selection of the use of educational technology. The Azure acronym stands the important components: analyze learners, state objectives, select methods, media, and materials, utilize methods, media, and materials, require learner participation, and evaluate and revise. The first step in the Assure model is to analyze learners. Identify learners. To analyze the learners, you must examine the learner in detail. Like most things, without taking the time in the beginning to examine the learner, nothing you have prepared will be effective. Once you have an understanding and reasonable grasp for the learner's competence at the beginning of the instruction, the teacher can modify to assist the learner in their learning endeavors. So, you must know the audience if you are to select the best medium to meet the objectives you have set. General characteristics. A superficial analysis of learner characteristics can provide helpful leads in selecting instructional methods and media. Characteristics of the learners depend on reading skills, ethnic or cultural subgroup, learners' apathy, grade level, social background, and sex. Specific entry competencies. At the beginning, you have to assume that the learners lack the knowledge and skills, but they possess the knowledge or skills needed to learn and understand from the lesson, which are skills, attitude about the topic, and prior knowledge. Instructors must have verified assumptions about entry competencies through informal means or more formal means. Entry tests are assessment, both formal and and informal that determine whether students possess the prerequisites. Learning style. Learning style refers to a cluster of psychological traits that determine how an individual perceives, interact with, and respond emotionally to learning environments. Gardner was dissatisfied with the concept of IQ and its unitary view of intelligence. He identified seven aspects of intelligence: verbal, logical, visual, musical, kinesthetic, interpersonal, and intrapersonal. State objectives. After the analysis of the learner attributes, the teacher must state standards and objectives for the learning module. This statement consists of a specification of what the learners will be able to do as a result of the instruction. In other words, objectives are the learning outcomes that will student learn from the lesson. Objectives are desired learning outcomes that will determine the specific topic to the transfer to the students as their acquired knowledge. Now, this knowledge will be the basis of the student's action or perspectives. The objectives you use should be as specific as possible so the learner will understand what they are to accomplish. If objectives are clearly and specifically stated, both the learning and teaching will become objective oriented. Most objectives contains four parts: audience, who learners are; behavior to be demonstrated; condition under which the behavior will be observed; and degree to which learned skills to be mastered. The mark of a good set of learning objectives is the conformity to the ABCDs of well-stated learning objectives. They are follows as: audience, for whom the objectives intended; behavior, what is the behavior or performance to be demonstrated; conditions, what are the conditions under which the behavior or performance will be observed; degree, to what degree will knowledge or be skill mastered. As well stated, objective starts by naming the audience of learners for whom the objective is intended. It then specifies the behavior or capability to be learned and the conditions under which the capability would be observed. The objective statement should be formulated with verbs that pinpoint the learning objective. A useful guide to the appropriate verbs to use is contained in Bloom's taxonomy. Remember that the assessment can only be based on your learner's behavior. A learner may know some material backwards and forwards but may not be able to perform well on a test. Select methods, media, and materials. Once you know your audience and have a clear idea of what they should get out of the lesson, then it is time to select appropriate method for the given learning task. Select available materials, modify existing materials, or design new materials to help accomplish this task. At this step, the instructor should connect the audience to the objectives. To connect the two, the teacher must determine what method to use. A systematic plan for using media demands that the media be selected by systematically at first. The selection process has two stages: decide appropriate method and choose suitable format. Deciding on the appropriate method for the given learning task. First, it would be overly simplistic to believe that there is one method that is superior to all others or that serves all learning needs equally well. Teachers often structure assignments to allow students with different preferred learning styles to pursue their individual practice through different methods. Having abstract random thinkers use a role play simulation, while concrete sequential thinkers use a live manual for structured problem solving. Second, choosing an appropriate media format and selecting, modifying, or designing the specific materials within that format. Choosing a media format. A media format is the physical form in which a message is incorporated and displayed. Media format includes flip charts, slides, audio, film, video, and computer multimedia. Each has a different strength and limitation in terms of the types of messages that can be recorded and displayed. Choosing a media format can be a very complex task because of the following: vast array of media available, the infinite variety among learners, and the objectives to be pursued. Things to consider in media selection models: instructional situation or setting. For example, a large group, small group, or self instruction. Learner variables: a reader, non reader, or auditory preference, and the nature of the objective, a cognitive, affective, motor skills, or interpersonal, must be considered against the presentational capabilities of each of the media formats. Some models are also take into consideration the capability of each format to give feedback to the learner. Obtaining specific materials. Select, modify, or design. Obtaining appropriate materials will be generally involve one of three alternatives: selecting available materials, modifying existing materials, or designing new materials. Once you decided what media format suits your objectives, the next thing that you should consider is finding specific material to convey the lesson. Selecting available materials. The majority of instructional materials used by teachers and trainers are off the shelf, that is ready made and available from school, district, or company collections or other easily accessible sources. Modifying available materials. If you cannot locate any suitable materials, you can always modify what is available. This can be both challenging and creative. Designing new materials. Certain basic consideration must be taken into account when designing new materials. Utilize methods, media, and material. These steps is where you develop your plan for implementing your media and materials. For each type of media or materials, the teacher selects and describe in how they are going to implement the media or material into your lesson to help your learners meet the lesson's objective. The media materials and technologies selected should be focused on carrying out the selected method. If you decide to use electronic equipment, be sure to use it before even practice if you have to. To ensure the equipment is functioning properly, in the same regard, it is also important to practice the lesson itself before introducing to the learner. Next, prepare the room, the necessary equipment, and the facilities. It may be obvious, but both learner and teacher should be prepared for the learning experience. To get maximum learning impact from your presentation, you must follow certain utilization procedures. Preview material, practice the presentation, prepare the environment, and present material. In previewing the materials, no instructional materials should be used blind. That's why during the selection process, you should have determined that the materials are appropriate for your audience and objectives. In practicing the presentation, after previewing the materials, you should practice your portion to the presentation. However, do not over practice for the presentation will sound canned. Prepare the environment. Wherever the presentation is to take place, classroom, auditorium, meeting room, or whatever the facilities will have to be put in order, Utilization of many media requires a darkened room, a convenient power supply, and access to light switches. Present the material. This is what you've been preparing for, so you will want to make the most of it. Our term for this is showmanship. Instructors should be able to direct attention in the classroom. Require learner participation. The require learner participation step requires you to describe how you are going to get each learner actively and individually involved in the lesson. Learner participation. Students learn best when they are actively involved in the learning experience. Whatever your teaching strategy, be sure to incorporate questions, answers, discussion, group work, hands on activities, and other ways of getting students actively involved in the learning of the content. You should seek to pay close attention to your learners and feel confident that they are truly grasping the content and not just learning. Participating in the learning will facilitate this level of understanding. Allow them to construct knowledge as opposed to trying to teach them knowledge. Finally, for this step, feedback must be provided to the learner before any type of evaluation is conducted. Evaluate and revise. The last step of the Assure method is evaluate students' performance. Here, the evaluation should be matched to the objective. Ultimately, this last stage is the most important. You must evaluate the instruction process from start to finish using the objectives you created in the beginning. It is helpful to reflect on your objections, the instructional strategy, the instructional materials, and the assessment. By evaluating the learners against the objectives, it can be determined if the lesson was effective and whether any step needs to be more modified or re-examined. The Azure model supports the field of educational technology. It is based on the principle that no one student acquires information in the same way. While the Azure model is used to systematically design instruction, it steps away from the traditional means of instruction, just like textbooks and lectures, to the use of technology to deliver the instruction. In this presentation, the Azure model has been defined and the six components necessary for the successful implementation of the instruction are elaborated. Analyze learners, state objectives, select methods, media and materials, utilize methods, media and materials, require learner participation, and evaluate and revise. And that's all. Thank